Hello, welcome back to the Well-Appointed Mystic. If this is your first time, welcome. I have been under the weather for the last week. I went to an event in Chicago called the Chicago Stationery Fest and proceeded to pick up a virus while I was there. And so it has been several weeks since I recorded a video, and I apologize. I particularly apologize to Dreya Blume, who provided these books for me for free for review purposes, that it has taken me so long to actually do this video. So this is a humongous pile. It is, there are 6 books here from Dreya Blume, who used to publish under the name Andy Matzner, and now publishes under the name Dreya Blume. And she has created a whole series of books on journaling with tarot. And I have always been interested in getting a hold of some of these books. And so I'm very grateful that I have this opportunity to sort of go through them and kind of to walk you through the different books, because there are so many of them. It is hard to decide which book to start with. So I'm going to kind of go through the pile. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just squidge these off to the side here and go through them in a little bit more one by one process. So this is the book called Journaling the Tarot. This is probably one of the earlier books. And there are brief information at the beginning, some quotes, and then it jumps into the instructions, which says this page intentionally left blank. And when I first looked at this book, I was a little confused. And then I realized that the point of this is that there are no instructions with this. What has been provided are each of the cards is provided with a series of questions that you can journal about. You can ask these questions based on like a card pull or a specific, like you can pull this, like in this case, the 7 of Wands. You can pull it, and then like, should you pull the 7 of Wands, you can look at this page and choose a question to journal about. You could also theoretically go through and find a specific question and then sort of meditate on a specific card. There are tons, like for each card, there's 2 pages of questions. And some of them don't always feel like sort of what I would normally associate with a specific card. But I think what it is potentially digging deeper into why this might be coming up for you. So it could be a case where if you pulled the Knight of Wands, you read through these questions and see which one feels related to a particular situation that you're dealing with and write about that. So it is a really nice little book. I took this with me when I was traveling at the beginning of the month, thinking that this would be a great way to spend the evening. But I realized that this was too deep for me to delve in a hotel room with like just a random deck for just a few minutes in the evening. So I did get a chance to sort of go through and read different prompts and was quite taken. I think this is going to be a great way to, should you do like a card a day pull, going through and finding one of the pages and looking at a question and seeing how you could best answer it related to that specific card. So this was really interesting. I was surprised. I was not expecting that Dreya was going to send me this particular one. So it was nice to get to see it in person and get a better feel for it. The one that most people are probably familiar with, because it's probably been mentioned the most, is the Tarot Activity Book. And this one is sort of divided up into a like very different structure. It's probably, I would say, if you were going to pick one to start with, I would say maybe pick this one. It is broken down into conversation starters, writing and journaling, arts and crafts. So the first section is much more about just asking questions, thinking about things. It may be a case where you choose a topic like this one is negative, positive. Understand that things are not always what they seem is the objective. So then you read through the story, and then maybe you want to go and pull. Yeah, so it's, this one says, go through your deck and choose a single card that does not resonate with you. That is, which is your least favorite card. Perhaps there's a particular one that has a negative message or vibe to you. Maybe, for whatever reason, you just don't like it. Once you've found that card, spend some time studying it. Look at it with soft, gentle eyes. Your goal is to think of a situation in which the negativity of the card could actually become a positive force. In your journal, note down what it might be about, what it might be about the specific card that could lead to a switch in how you interpret it. So this one is much more of an activity focused. So first there's the conversation starters, then there are various activities related to different cards. So I think that this is, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more directive, like read this chapter, pull a card, reflect on the card kind of a thing, that I think that the activity book will serve more of a purpose in that method. So this one probably would have been the one I should have taken with me, where I could have just read one section in an evening and sort of meditated on a specific card, rather than sort of the deep dive that the Journaling the Tarot book had. So this one has, and I mean, not to say that this is light or fluffy or anything like that. There's still a lot of deep work that can be done with this, but because you can sort of pick and choose activities or specific categories. So like if you want to focus on the arts and crafts section, which might require more doodling or drawing or making things, there's a couple of like mason jar projects. So a little bit of like, jar magic kind of thing. This one I think might be more appealing. So the next ones that I'm going to talk about are, I'm going to start with this giant book. It doesn't even fit in the frame. It's probably A4 or letter sized for anybody who wants sort of a scale perspective, as opposed to the tarot activity book and the Journaling the Tarot, which is essentially half the size. The Journaling the Tarot is essentially like an A5, 5x7 sort of size. And same, the tarot activity is a little bit bigger. So just knowing, like, if you're looking for a book that's portable and travelable, Tarot for Transformation is probably not the one you're going to pick for that reason. So what this book is using the major arcana to discover your best life and create a life worth living. So this book has, for each card, it goes deep into talking about things that the card represents, or what it can represent, quotes related to the specific card. And just, so, I mean, there is a ton of stuff for each one to sort of do super heavy, in-depth, sort of self-discovery, self-research. So this is all, that is the entirety of the Hierophant. So it is probably about 20 pages of content, specifically just about one card. So if you are looking for a focus that is more of that sort of inner work, self-discovery kind of focus with your tarot practice, then I think Tarot for Transformation may be the book for you. It's just a totally different perspective. Here's Temperance, and the quote that's on the inside is everything in moderation, including moderation. It's an Oscar Wilde quote, which is one of my favorite. I love Oscar Wilde. He was a wit and quite a delight. So there's just all kinds of things to think about with this one. This is a meal. This is not a snack. I feel like the tarot activity book probably is closer to a snack. The journaling the tarot is maybe a small meal, and this is like a 4-course, full appetizer, entree, dessert, the whole kit caboodle. And since this is just focusing on the major arcana, Dreya has also released a series of books specific to each of the suits. So I was sent a copy of the Pentacles. I do believe that several of the others are already available, but just to give me a taste. So this is the same process that she went through in Tarot for Transformation. The suit versions, smaller scale book, a little bit easier on the back if you're carrying it around, but goes into detail about each individual card in the suit of, like in this case, in the suit of the Pentacles. And again, this one, I mean, these very much focus on self-discovery and inner work and that kind of thing. So the example here with the Six of Pentacles dives into sort of, thinking about like how have concepts of fairness and unfairness played out throughout your life. So like you could have a journaling topic, just kind of diving into all of these different things and how they might relate to other cards, focusing on smaller details within the image, and like, focusing in on the hand gesture and things. So these definitely dive deep into the meaning and symbology within each card. So I find these super fascinating. I love that the one that I got was Pentacles. I know that a lot of people really love the Pentacles suit. As an air sign, I tend to be a fan of the swords, even though they're really brutal. So I'm looking forward to picking up the rest of the books in this series. I'll probably start with whichever one I can find next. But yeah, so these are, again, really deep dives and really focusing on inner work and personal growth and that kind of thing. I feel like these are less focused on, for lack of a better word, mystical or magical, or using them in magic work, that kind of thing. This is definitely focused from the perspective of someone who's a psychologist on how can you use these tools to better know yourself and how you relate to circumstances. So I think that that's really, it's such a great addition to tarot practice in general. So the last two, another one that's a giant book that doesn't fit in the frame, but this is Doodling the Tarot, and this is connecting the cards through creativity and mindfulness. And so this really focuses on giving you an opportunity to look at the card, an individual card, and then use the sheet to the side. And there's usually a couple pages in here, but use the other page to recreate or draw elements from the individual card, to sort of, oftentimes, like, people have talked about like some of the coloring books and things like that, of how they, by spending time really focusing on the cards, they saw things that they hadn't noticed before. And so I think redrawing or doodling each of the individual cards will help to see things you might not have seen or notice details that had escaped your attention as you're just sort of pulling cards. So, and again, this book doesn't have a ton of instructions. This is very much a use this in the best way possible. So you know, she, sorry, goes into a little bit of detail about, you know, just using that doodling and thinking, being present in the moment, and, you know, be inspired by each card. So I just thought it was interesting. I almost wish that rather than providing blank pages in a book, because I'm one of those people who doesn't really like to write in my books, if this had been condensed down a little bit to a slightly smaller format so that I could pair it with a sketchbook or something like that and do my doodling in a different book instead of this giant book. So as much as I love the idea, and I think I really want to spend some time focusing on, you know, sketching an individual card. Also, because I'm left-handed, having the card on the left-hand page and doodle on the right is very inconvenient for me. I kind of want to just turn the whole book upside down. And maybe that's a good thing. Like, by turning the book upside down, I get the reverse of the card. And, you know, they always say, like, if you're trying to learn to draw something new, take the picture and turn it upside down, because then you're just looking at the shapes and the lines and not on what you know something to be. So who knows? But this is really fascinating, and I really like, there's just little, you know, keywords here, which I think the keywords are really great. And so even if I gain nothing else from this book, the keywords and the key phrases that are provided in here are really great. And I might add to some of my sort of keyword projects that I have been doing, you know, with like Lisa Pepez's keywording system and things like that. So there's just, you know, again, there's so much to get out of the tarot, and Dreya has done so much in so many different ways to help sort of pull that information out. So if sketching and doodling are things that would help you focus more on your tarot practice in some way, then this book might be super handy. So I have one book left, and this one is probably the least tarot related. And this one is called Navigating Your Saturn Return. And this one it does have tarot in here, but it's focused on the idea of your Saturn return, which is every like 25 to 29 years. So it's sort of that moment in time where we're all going through those like big life changes or life stages. So like at 29, 25, you know, somewhere between 25. And it's usually your Saturn return is several years. So it can be like, it can sort of straddle between your, you know, 25th and 30th birthday kind of a thing, is when we're, you know, you go from being sort of that, you know, sort of just out of college or just starting out to potentially being a parent or, you know, working full time or like all these other things. So like that's sort of your first Saturn return. And then your next Saturn return is somewhere around between, what is it, like 45 and 55, something like that. Or 40, like it's it's almost every 28 years, something like that. So like your late 40s, mid 50s kind of time frame. So it's another life change, like empty nesters and those kinds of things. So using the tarot to sort of ask questions about where you are at that stage in your life. It's again more of an exercise book where there's spaces for you to sort of write in your responses, you're into the book. And again, this is one of those things where it's like, I would have preferred this to be a smaller book, like the activity book, or the tarot for journaling the tarot, because I just don't like writing in my books in this way, particularly when it's such personal stuff. If this were a book that I wanted to be able to loan to a friend, I wouldn't want to have written inside sort of my own thoughts on these topics, because obviously like your Saturn return, you've got 20 years in between each one. You could loan this book to somebody until you needed it back, you know? So I would have preferred that instead of leaving a lot of blank pages, it would have just been, you know, your card representation and the questions and how you might use that, because I feel like this would be a really great activity in those times when you're going through your Saturn return, to use this book instead of one of the other books for your sort of daily pull for like an entire year, you know, as you're sort of working through, you know, this like huge change in your life, answering these questions instead of sort of the everyday questions. So anyway, I really like this concept and I think it's great, and I'm certainly going to use this book regardless of the layout. Yeah, that was my only complaint, is like I just want a smaller book that I can put with my journal and sort of keep these questions in there. And I think I looked up when my Saturn return, or my Saturn return is, and it's not for a couple of years, so I have some time. But I think this is such a great concept. So these are all of the books that I got from Dreya Blume. So we have Navigating Your Saturn Return, Doodling the Tarot, Tarot for Transformation, and Tarot for Transformation Pentacles. Then we have the Tarot Activity Book and Journaling the Tarot. So if I were to sort of put them in order that I would recommend picking these up, I think it also has to do with sort of where you are at this particular time in your life. If you are sitting on the edge of a Saturn return, then maybe start with the Saturn return. If you're just looking for something that just gives you more opportunity to play with your tarot, sort of do some self-discovery, then I would say the Tarot Activity Book or Journaling the Tarot. I think if you want to go deep, I would go with Tarot for Transformation and start with the Major Arcana and then work into maybe your favorite suit or the suit that gives you the most heartache, and work your way through those. I think if you really want to consider, you know, if you have it in your heart that at some point you wanted to create your own tarot deck, then Doodling the Tarot might be a great place to start, because you can sort of start looking at the classic Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and dive into the symbolism that exists in these cards and how you might implement them in a different way or in your own way, in your own tarot deck. So I think that has a lot of appeal as well. So that is my long and short. I think these are all really fascinating, really exciting books. As far as I know, these were all, I think, self-published and are available on Amazon, and I will provide links to all of them in the notes below. And thank you again to Dreya for sending me these books, and I apologize that it took me so long to get this video done. So I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to talking to you again soon, and thanks for watching.